everyone, and welcome to our webinar today in partnership with Beroe. My name's Neil Perry and I'm the broadcast editor for Technology and AI magazines. Now, today's session is called From Volatility to Visibility, Unlock Smarter Inflation and Cost Management. So let's cut to the chase. This is the key question, really. What is the secret of turning market volatility into an opportunity? With inflation and cost variations causing our procurement professionals a few sleepless nights, what if you could be a step ahead of price swings, get some real-time visibility on costs, and be able to negotiate with a little more accuracy? Well, today I'm going to be digging into one such tool to help you do that, Beroe's Inflation Watch, and hearing how Siemens Energy has put it to work in the real world. So an awful lot to do and not too much time to do it in over the next 40 minutes or so. Just a reminder, we are all live today, so just over to the side of your screen there is the public chat, so do drop into there, say hello, and also put your questions in there when we get to the Q&A section later on in this webinar. So joining me today, I've got some real industry expertise to help us out. First of all, I'm joined by Prerna Dhawan, Chief Product Officer at Beroe. Hello, Prerna. And also joining us is Adrian Vicol, Data Architect and Data Strategy Lead at Siemens Energy. Prerna, Adrian, good to see you both. How are you?
Good to see you, Neil.
Good to see you too, Neil.
Absolutely. Well, as I said, you're very welcome. As I said, we have a huge amount to get through, so less of me, more of you two. I'm fascinated by this topic because I'm always fascinated to see how these kind of tools can make a difference, how they work in the real world. So I know you've got a few slides we want to go through. There's a demonstration we want to see, and then there's plenty of questions I want to drop in as we go. So let's pass the virtual floor over to you, and let's get the slides up, and we'll start making our way through things. Okay, here we go. Right, here we are. Well, this is what we're going to be going through. Adrian, Prerna, who's going to be taking a lead on this to start with?
Okay, let me kick this off. So I think, I mean, as everybody in the call is probably dealing with this, hearing about this in the news, reading on LinkedIn, we are living in a very complex, turbulent world. There are a lot of changes geopolitically at macro level, at micro levels in industries. And of course, I think as we operate in the data and intelligence space, we see the world has moved from a point where we had lack of data and we did not have enough information to a point where we have too much data and we're kind of all dealing with cognitive overload. And to deal with that, and on top of that, there are gaps in decision making. While we've talked about data driven decision making for years now, it's not really something we see in action. So how do you bridge that gap between data and insight, but then also the gap between insight and action? This is something that we at Beroe have been looking at for the last many years. We've worked with many of our customers, including Siemens Energy, and I'm very pleased to say that in the last couple of years, we have taken our engagement to the next level with Adrian and his team at Siemens Energy. There is, of course, as Adrian will tell us, a lot of organization-specific context and complexity that also comes into play. And I think, I've been on enough panels in the last few years to hear about, the tech hype cycles and, maps and all sort of technology we have around us. But I think the session today is really about how do you move from a proof of concept and pilot to something that is real, something that's adopted at scale across an organization as big as Siemens Energy. And I hope the rest of this session gives all that practical understanding of what it took for us to start with what really was a vision and idea to making it work in practice in an organization globally. So I think with that, Adrian, I'd maybe if you can talk us through what, in your view, is this partnership about, and of course, I will add to that as well as we go.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, so hello everybody. It's a pleasure to be here and share a little bit about our journey so far. So probably in the back of everyone's head is the unique feeling that the company you work for and you represent is unique, right? So we think that too. So there's elements of uniqueness in everything that we do. So in order for us to implement any software, really any tools in our organization, it takes a high level of customization and of alignment with a lot of stakeholders that are touching it and are involved in it. So when we first set out in this partnership with Beroe, we were trying to make sense of what's going on in the world and how does that affect us directly. So we had a number of crises on our hands, as did everybody else, starting with COVID, ups and downs with our supply base, bankruptcies, geopolitical unrest, wars, even trade tariffs imposition, and all sorts of limitation on critical materials. So when you have all of these stacked together, you have sometimes even opposite market forces being at work on your supply chain, and it's hard to quantify those. So part of the concept that we thought about is to be able to leverage the deep industry insight that we have within our company with the expertise and the data-driven approach that Beroe had in the creation of their tool ecosystem. So then we ended up creating a tailored solution that is leveraging these insights, but at the same time, this is being filtered through a network of expertise that we have built within the company. So having this sort of digital first approach, as mentioned earlier, is only possible in this day and age when information is abundant. So back a couple of years ago, information scarcity was the main reason that people were quoting for not being able to quote unquote predict the future, right? But now we have all of that information, so the challenge quickly became, how do you turn that into knowledge? So the truth is, you don't get it right from the start, right? This was an iterative approach where we started off with a concept. We then moved to, a small deployment, an MVP, and then we actually began to scale it. So that is a journey which you're going to see. So it didn't go from zero to hero. We had a solid base of doing this within the organization for years now, but we decided to take it to the next level and actually deploy it at scale. So you'll get to see exactly a little bit of that journey in the following minutes.
Excellent. So I will just extend on that to say that a lot of times when we look at solution providers and technology providers, it's not really only about, is the solution the best solution that's out there? Is it a great product? It's also about the readiness of your organization to adopt new technology. You may be following the same process internally today. Maybe it's in an Excel format, maybe it's in a Power BI or Tableau dashboard if you're using it as your tool. But it is about, are you ready as an organization to take that change and come on that journey? And I think in our experience with Siemens Energy, that was quite critical to the success of where we've got to today. And I just wanted to call that out, that yes, it was iterative product development. We worked together, we took feedback in, but it's also essentially equal effort, if not more, for the organization that Adrian was leading on the other side.
If I could just jump in for a second,
Please.
if you don't mind, that this shift here between the era where there was a lack of data to the abundance of data, and I'm not sure abundance is a strong enough word at sometimes, but do you, from both of your experiences, see companies struggling to get the visibility still into costs and inflation despite having all of this data? Is that historically quite a common thing? Prerna or Adrian, whoever wishes to field that?
Yeah. I can say that in the past organization that I worked for, I could see that. So, for example, you do have information available, but then again, you need, as an organization, to have the capacity to articulate what, let's say, in our case, the products that you're buying mean in terms of those information, right? So we'll get to details on how to deconstruct the complexity within our supply chains into manageable blocks, right? So this is an ongoing effort where, of course, years of expertise, especially in high-end manufacturing, kind of need people that can connect the dots, because we all have these silos of data and knowledge, pockets of knowledge within the organization, but it is quite a journey to find the right people who are willing to drive this transformation and to operate in such an ecosystem. So it's really a paradigm shift to go from the scarcity to abundance, and then you get all sorts of new problems, like how to make sense of those, and that I found really interesting, both from a personal journey but also as an organization. I think we went through that.
Yeah, and I think from my perspective and experience, why as we talk about data scarcity or abundance, it's actually can be quite different depending on what industry you're looking at, what market segment you're looking at, and also within an organization, there are different pockets of excellence, if you may. There may be certain teams, let's say they're buying agro commodities. If I talk about a food business, they're very good and they have the data, they have the market knowledge. But there may be other teams, or even within agro, there may be teams who don't have all the data that they need and that visibility. And as we'll talk about, and you'll see in later in the demo as well, I think the big part of what we at Beroe are looking to do is not just provide you lagging indicators or historical data, which is what many organizations are still using as a way to say what the future would look like, but also actually giving you more forward looking insights and forecasts of what could happen in the future, so you are as prepared as you can be. Of course, nobody has a crystal ball. It won't be accurate 100% of the time, but what is the best you can do with the tools that are at your disposal? That's really the intent, Neil.
Absolutely. And just before we get into this slide, I'll just jump into the public chat quickly as a few reflections and a few hellos, just to remind everyone we are live. Great observation here from Peter, who says, my most recent reflection regarding data is this: less is more. Collecting only essential data is not just beneficial for compliance, it also streamlines processes. Excessive unnecessary data can complicate approvals and slow down progress. And Anna says, readiness is a key factor. Without it, it's impossible to take the necessary steps to implement the right solution for your organization. Absolutely true. And lots of hellos as well. Mishtan, who said hello. We've got Raj Kumar, we have Wasim, we have Alawanji, we have Igor, Annie Dita, we have Arti, we have Livia, we have Angela, we have Alejandro, Mohammed, and Maria, and Sushmitha, and Sajithia. I hope I pronounced most of those even close to right. If I didn't, I apologize, because I was reading them as I went down the screen. Anyway, I interrupted you, but it's important just to say hello to the audience. Yeah, let's continue with the presentation. Adrian, I rudely interrupted you what feels like 10 minutes ago, so I'll hand back to you.
No problem. So the whole implementation journey needs to start right with an end in mind. So where do you want to go? And the real and truthful answer to that is you want something actionable, right? So at the end of the journey, you want to take a decision that produces a better outcome for your company, right? That's the end game here. Because I've been exposed over the last couple of years to a lot of products or different sort of approaches that would produce like really shiny and glossy graphs or all sorts of reports, but when it gets down to actually acting on it, they kind of fell short in many aspects. And I think this was part of the brief that we started off together with Beroe to say we really want to build something actionable so that it's scalable and that people naturally adopt it within the organization. As you can imagine, we're present in most countries around the world, and we have, again, multiple business units which have wildly different, business needs. So it really boils down to what are the unique things about them and what are the common ones. And I can tell you, everybody has concerns on costs. So this is a truly universal thing that I noticed with all of my colleagues. So then once you build a proper solid use case, which is being validated by experts, then this can scale really nicely within an organization.
I've got one question about implementation though, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with this, Adrian. And one thing that I always think about when you're putting any kind of tool in place is it is a big job, and there needs to be support, and there needs to be the readiness that we were talking about a moment ago. But was there a point in time when all that was happening, you're thinking this is too complex? Why are we doing this? Is it worth it? Talk me through that. Was there ever that kind of moment, or was it all slightly more straightforward?
Every day, Neil. Every day.
But for good reasons. Good reasons.
For good reasons, and in a constructive way. So it is by no extent a one-man show or anything like that. There was a team of experts with deep industry knowledge that have been doing this thing for years now. They were experts in digitalization. We had our colleagues in cost value engineering, our colleagues in functional development, our colleagues in controlling. So it was really a project that pulled together multiple central functions, multiple business units, and our colleagues managing direct material and our colleagues managing raw material. So it was really a big push to get everybody on the same boat and say, look, we need together as a team to be better prepared for what tomorrow brings us. And it was shared value in all of that. But it wasn't easy. So it wasn't easy. The partnership made it a little bit easier in the sense that Beroe was very responsive, to all of our fluctuating requests as you get whenever you're building something. But ultimately, you need to push through, right? You need to push through, and it gets easier. This I can guarantee for the people listening around. It seems daunting at the beginning, all this mountain of complexity, but if you start chipping away and if you overcome that initial feeling of dread, it does get easier with time.
Just going to the comments on the public chat here. Rajesh says, one of the key challenges I've seen for large organisations is getting consensus on the approach for a transformative project, especially when you have parallel teams focusing on similar problem statements. Curious to see how Siemens Energy here managed to navigate this complexity. I'll just put that question to you now as it's relevant now rather than coming back to it in the Q&A.
Sure.
That's why I jumped on it now. How did that work for you, Adrian?
Sure. So when I first started implementing the project, I personally had over 200 interviews with such stakeholders. So it's a good thing if multiple people are feeling the same pain and are working towards a problem. That is the first step. It means that this problem is commonly acknowledged across the organization. People recognize it as a problem. Now it's a matter of how do we fix it. And here, indeed, there are specific challenges to that. It took some time to convince everybody of the way of doing things. So there's no secret formula here or magic dust that you can sprinkle on it to make it better. You just need to get people to see the value in the way that you're doing things. And one of my personal, let's say, strategies that I employ, I said, look, this is the best solution we have thought about up until this moment, and all of these people kind of chipped in on us finding that solution. Is there a better one that you see? And then try to bring all of that discussion from the emotional level to the more pragmatic, solution-oriented level, and that kind of takes away a lot of the back and forth of people trying to protect the work they've done or a certain approach or things like that, and try to talk facts and to see if that's the most scalable way of addressing a problem.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed, and thank you, Rajesh, for your question. Anything you're wanting to add on implementation, Prerna?
No, I think just echoing Adrian's thought, it's it's like once you start that journey, you need to get on it. It is our experience with Siemens Energy, it's our experience in other work we're doing with other clients as well. It is really about having that conviction. It's about getting your stakeholders with you on that journey. You can't be sitting in a silo, and I think there was a question or a comment earlier about less is more when it comes to data. So I just want to add that from our perspective at Beroe, we are really moving in the direction of what decisions is procurement looking to make, and what data do you need for those decisions. So it's almost taking a decision back approach rather than here's all the data that we can get our arms around and now what do I do with it, which is where I think we've been in the last few years as an industry, as a world. So we are kind of taking a view saying, what decision is procurement looking to make? Who should you buy from? Where should you buy from? When should you buy? And what data can we bring to make those decisions easier, to make those decisions more dynamic, and make those decisions more actionable or impactful rather for the business. So I just wanted to call that out as we go along here. Sorry, I jumped an extra slide. So I think, Adrian, get into the weeds of what is it, because I'm sure everybody wants to see what is the solution we're talking about, what
Sure.
but would be good to maybe start from the big picture view, like what is the impact, right? Create solutions, money's going in, data's going in, but ultimately what does it mean for Siemens Energy? I think would be good for us to start there.
Exactly. So as you probably know, Siemens Energy is active in many, if not most of the areas of energy, right? From generation, from grid technologies, for things like hydrolyzers. So there's a wealth of products that we're putting on the market, which are very sophisticated, high-end products, and it's very difficult to understand how much how much these things cost, right? So then what we came up with is a collection of nearly 1,500 cost structures, and these are covering about 50% of our global spend. And these have been created to offer an idea of how the prices of these complex objects actually fluctuate in time, and of course how much they used to cost in the past, right? Because one of the common issues in supply chain is you're trying to figure out how much did something cost at the time I signed a contract, how much is it today, and how much will it be in a couple of years. So these are kind of basic questions that in the sort of classical approach would require a lot of digging around in the data, then doing a lot of research, and then finally making some nice slides and presenting them and taking a decision, right? So we try to compress this process into essentially minutes, and be able to give our procurement professionals a very fast way of seeing this information. So just to understand an idea of scale, there are around 2,000 people in our organization who are actively using the Beroe solution. And this is helping them in supplier negotiations, for example. It's helping them in budget forecasting. We also have a very a strong focus in project business, which means that the development times of certain projects can take years, since they're these massive country scale projects, right? So the markets don't sit still in this time. Things fluctuate. So you need to be able to have as much visibility as possible to the things that impact you directly. So in the same sense that a statistical office in a country would develop like a consumer price index based on the price of the average things that a normal person would buy, imagine that we have developed a sort of Siemens Energy version of a statistical office, whereas we are putting in it price indexes for the things which are relevant for us and the materials that are relevant for us, and also taking account our supplier distribution, right? So this ultimately leads to improved cost forecasting accuracy, and it reduces the uncertainty to the extent that it is possible. Again, even if we are bringing risks down in terms of price volatility, nothing is perfect, right? So you get political factors changing the rules of the game overnight. So of course it is very hard to account for things like this. But on the larger timescales, we notice that this drives better alignment across procurement. Everybody speaks the same language. Everybody uses sort of the same yardstick to measure things. In negotiations with suppliers, we are putting in the same sort of metrics and KPIs that everybody across the supply chain then recognizes and guides their pricing strategies against. So this is just in a nutshell to tell you a little bit of how this kind of permeated the entire organization and how people are across different domains are kind of collaborating on this. So I won't steal too much of the time, and let's move to actually seeing how this works.
Yeah. So while Adrian talked about how this has permeated the entire or large parts of the organization, there are many people using it cross functionally. I think the intent here was to keep it quite simple and not over engineer or make it quite complex as a initiative, as a workflow. So I will walk you through this in a minute or in a few minutes as well. But high level, it's really about saying you set up your portfolio, whether you're a buyer or a category manager for one category, multiple categories, you're head of directs or head of indirects, you are responsible for the entire spend. You essentially can set up your portfolio of products, categories, or commodities. You can then create those cost breakdowns. So what constitutes the cost? What is driving the cost in there? And or you can map from existing cost structure. So it's not just a shell where you come in and you have to do all the work. There's a lot of pre-added data, a lot of populated information that gives you a head start. I will show you all that later as well. And then ultimately, once you have those cost breakdowns, you link the relevant cost drivers. So for example, if you're saying I'm buying a plastic bottle, then in that case, there is, let's say, the bottle itself, there's a label, there's a cap or a closure that goes, and what are the individual cost components of that, what is driving those costs, you link those, and ultimately, like Adrian just explained, you can generate a composite price index, and then you roll it back up across your portfolio, across your categories. And ultimately, this helps you analyze those impacts. And that doesn't stop there. It is not just about saying, okay, I've got this shiny dashboard which is telling me what the inflation is expected to be. I can do different levels of slicing and dicing. It's really about, in the end, take action. What are you going to do once you have this visibility? Maybe you need to go renegotiate a supplier contract. Maybe you can switch your source of supply. Maybe you need to just go and have a conversation with your stakeholders about different specifications. So ultimately, it's about using this insight, using this intelligence as a tool for action in your organization. That's the simple process that we follow and that we go through. The methodology, it is a combination of data, technology, as well as AI and human. So it's not, and I wouldn't come here and say it's a fully AI powered solution. It would be great if I said it, but that's not true. And I don't think we are at a point where AI is the answer to everything. So essentially, this is a combination of using AI where it makes sense, using humans, or having our SMEs at Beroe providing those underlying data sets, providing those underlying forecasts, because ultimately, I think we're all seeing the answers or what your technology is giving you is only as good as the data that's being fed in. So there is a big focus on that data veracity upfront. So ultimately, if you look at it, we are saying, okay, the data, which is for the cost drivers or the cost components, that could be Beroe's data, that could be data from our, specialist data partners. It could be data that the clients have. For example, in this case, Siemens Energy has some of their own data sets that they want to bring in. It all comes into our backend database. And then on top of that, you can then build your cost structures. Either we could build that for you at Beroe, and I will show you in the system, you can build them yourselves quite easily, or it could be something that you can use our pre-built cost models and cost structures as well. And from an output standpoint, yes, of course, you have nice looking reports and dashboards. You also have, for example, in the case of Siemens Energy, they have this data in a data lake that they're using in other applications or linking it to other parts of the business. So it's not just a dashboard, it's also other ways you can consume the same data, because it has to be the single source of truth that permeates the rest of that organization chain, if you may. And ultimately, from a use case standpoint, we've already mentioned, it's really about budgeting. It's about supplier negotiations. How do you get to a data-driven stage in those areas for your business? So I think with that, it might be a good time. I'm also conscious over all of the time we have to jump into the demo if we can.
Yes,
Unless,
absolutely.
yeah.
I particularly wanted to find out a little bit more about that and see how it works in the real world. So just to go through, we've got a whole host of questions absolutely flying in. So we are going to have to rapidly move through so we can get on to those. But
Yes, I will aim to
thank you,
cover
Prerna.
as fast as I can. All right, so I'm just gonna present my screen. So this is a live demo. I hope my screen's visible. If Neil, you can give me a quick nod to that.
Yeah, that's all good.
Okay, excellent. So this, again, I'm not going to talk about our entire BeroeLive.ai platform, but I'm only going to focus on Inflation Watch, which is the new product we've been talking about. Before I go in any further, I do want to clarify that this is not the instance or the version that Siemens Energy is using. No data in this session or anything that you see here is Siemens Energy specific or something that is very specific to that organization. So this is more like a general demo that we've prepared for this session, and hopefully this resonates with many of you. But again, as I talk through, you'll see it's configurable, and it is something that we can make relevant for your specific business and industry as well. So again, we've talked about the fact that what is it that we're looking at? Not a dashboard, not a chart ultimately, but it's about what am I doing. And in my experience, what we have seen is the primary pain point was it was taking a lot of time for procurement professionals in various industries, various clients we've had. They did not have the data. They did not have data in a consolidated way to do budgeting, to look at their target setting, to identify saving initiatives. And it was taking them months to do that. And even it wasn't just about the time it took. It was really about also when they're saying what my budget or forecast spend for next year is, it was still in many cases based on gut feel. It was based on lagging indicators rather than forward-looking views. So that was one primary pain point that we look at when it comes to Inflation Watch. And secondly, we talked about it earlier, but I just want to call that out as we go along, which is that when you're in a supplier negotiation, typically we've seen, and again, this is not true in all cases, but in most cases, suppliers have an upper hand. They typically have more information. So they're coming to you and saying, we need a 14% or a 15% price increase because this raw material has gone up by 15%. So as a buyer, as a category manager, do you have the right data and evidence to test that claim, just to see if that increase from the supplier is justified? That's the two pain points primarily that we're looking to resolve here. So let's say I am in this fictional organization, and when I log in, I can basically see what the inflation across my spend is. And in this case, let's say I have $33 million spent, and I can say, okay, how that's trending, not just now, but over the next 12 to 18 months. As a business, I can then say, how does this look like if I look at just my North America spend? How do I look at it when it's in other regions? Or I can also look at this by categories. And again, all of this is configurable to your organization. So in this instance, for this company, their main spend pools or categories are raw materials and packaging and utilities and so on and so forth. So you can quickly see how this is trending. And again, depending on your remit, all of this can be varied. And again, in many organizations, there's a regional view, there's also a business unit view. So in this case, this company has a different business unit. So let's say they want to see how the spend that's associated to our consumer electronics business unit trending. So you can see that view here that, okay, it was, let's say, $8.8 million here. How's that going to be by March 2026? So this is, again, a quick bird's eye view to help you get an understanding of what that spend inflation looks like from a market perspective. And I'll come to how this comes together. You can also then quickly see a view of what are those top products, categories, subcategories that are driving these inflationary trends for you, or what are driving those changes. So let's say in this example, I want to see if I'm buying components and parts, and that's what I am responsible for. What are those different subcategories which are witnessing or expected to witness the highest level of inflation in the period that I'm looking at? But more importantly, it's not just about inflation. There are also cases where you can expect some deflation to happen. And what we are seeing is oftentimes those get missed because, we're kind of all firefighting and suppliers are coming and asking us for price increases. But in this, the visibility is that in this case, you can actually say, okay, we're actually expecting a deflation. Do we need to go ask for a discount? Do we need to look at our contracts and see whether there is an automatic reduction that comes back to us? Is it over or under a certain threshold? So what does that do? So you get visibility of both inflationary and deflationary situations to make better decisions. And then, of course, you can see your overall portfolio. So for this demo, I set up a portfolio of, let's say, 33 different products and services. I will walk you through some examples. So let's say I am looking at HDPE. That's one of the categories that I buy. So there is a quick view saying how's the price of HDPE expected to be. And like I said, this is not just a historical view. It's also giving you a forecast of what it is expected to be over the next 12 to 18 months. You can also see this against your spend. So price is just the price of that, in this case, HDPE index or HDPE material. But in the spend view, you can actually say your spend, which in this case I had added $1 million, how that trends on a month-on-month and on an annualized basis. So you can look at all that, of course, as you would expect. You can change to look at different time periods. You can also change to different currencies here for the data. So ultimately, let's say you're buying HDPE, or you were buying something a little bit more complex, let's say blister packs, right? In blister packs, what is different, I will show you here, is, again, you can see the price view for blister packs. This is a composite price view, because in blister packs, what we have built in are certain components that are driving costs. So as you can see, in this case, polyethylene or PET resin is a big cost component, but you will see that it's not the only cost component. There is other macroeconomic factors that have been built in. There is other indices like labor costs that have been built in. So here you can see what those breakdowns are. And then again, similarly, you can see what the spend view is, which is specific to your business, not just the price index or the absolute price for that specific material or item. Now, this is what you do once, your portfolio was set up, let's say a few months ago, and every day or whenever you log in, you can come and see this view. But the main work happens in the setup phase, which is you have to come in and look at what am I buying, and that's where I think the big value is. So let's say, again, I'm going to take a role of a packaging category manager in this business, or let's say a chemical category manager. So let's say I am buying benzene. I'm directly exposed to benzene as a business. So I would come in and say, I want to set up benzene as part of my portfolio. So you would see that there are two options here. So either it's a category that we already cover, which means we already have a price data series for it, or in certain cases, we may have a pre-built cost structure or an already existing cost breakdown that you can use as a starting point. So I'll come to that in my next example. But let's imagine you're directly exposed to benzene and that's part of your portfolio. So you come in and you say, I want to proceed with that. You can select the grade. So in this case, let's say I will select industrial grade benzene from Europe is what I'm exposed to. And then from there, I just have to go and say, let's say I'm again looking at this for Europe. This is part of my packaging. It is something that I buy for my automotive solutions business as it is used, let's say, in the tires for rubber production. And let's say I will just call it chemicals here as my personal identifier. So once I've set up or assigned benzene to my business taxonomy, I can then go in and add specific information about my contract. Now, at this point, the only piece of information you need to add is what is your annual spend in this case. But we have, as you see, plans for making this solution even more contextualized and tailored. So there are other fields like you can add your contract information, you can enter your floor and ceiling prices, say whether there's a renegotiation clause, etc. But those fields are not mandatory at this point. But they are plans in our future roadmap, which I'll talk about later. And you'll see how this comes into action over the next 6 to 12 months from a product evolution standpoint. But at this stage, let's say we're just looking at the annual spend. And then what happens is you get a quick view of saying, okay, what is the price of benzene expected to be and how it's trending. So that's how you set up benzene here. You can again go and see a spend view as well. So let's say I've now set up benzene as part of my portfolio. I'm directly exposed to this, and you can quickly start seeing that in here. I will show you another example because that's where this starts to become real. In many cases, as procurement, we are not directly exposed to commodity markets. That's not what we're buying. We're buying something a bit more complex. And let's say in this case, I'm going to use blister packaging. Now, what you see here is we already have a pre-built cost structure for blister packs. So you can start with that and I'll show you. So some of these steps would remain the same. So let's say in this case, I want to choose North America for blister packaging. And I will go and again, let's say quickly get the same organization taxonomy linked here. And then I will show you where the difference is to what we did in case of benzene. So in this case, again, I'm going to use the same $1 million spend on blister packs. And this is where I think the key difference is, and we have 1,300 such pre-built cost breakdowns and cost structures that you can use once you're setting up your portfolio. So as you can see, in this case for blister packs, we have a pre-built cost structure. So we're saying, let's say, PET is a big cost component, electricity is there, a PPI index is there, labor cost, CPI. So all of this has already been added. This is the weightage of what each of these drivers contribute to the cost. And of course, this is editable. So you could use this cost breakdown as is, just save and continue, and it becomes a part of this portfolio. Or let's say, because of your information and your knowledge with your suppliers, that this is something a little bit different. So you can, of course, edit these percentages and make it your own as well. So once you get to 100%, you can save it. So the benefit of this is, in many cases, you may not know what the cost breakdown is. So you can have a starting point here. Even if you know your cost breakdown and you're thinking, why do I then have to go through the process of adding it to the system? It's really about democratizing access to that knowledge across the organization, across your teams, and also having a consistent way you're doing this in the business. So this is a second example of saying, okay, blister packs, I have set it up, I configured an existing cost structure, and that's what my view looks like. So again, as you can see here, you can see what is making up that cost. Now, this chart is quite powerful. Let's say a supplier would come and say, I'm expecting prices of PET resin to go up by 20%, and therefore your price needs to go up by 20%. So you can come in and have this conversation. In fact, you could pull it up on the screen and say PET is only 50-60% of the cost. So that's not how the negotiation has to work. So again, it gives you that data-driven, evidence-based view of conversations you can have with your supplier partners. So again, same view you can see here for blister packs as well. And the last example I'll show you when you're setting up your portfolio is probably the most interesting one, because like I say, not every business, but many businesses buy things that are very, very complex. So in this fictional business, let's say they buy heat exchangers. Now that's quite a complex product, and they want to also look at what the expected inflation there is. So as to not spend a lot of time, I have set up some items that go into making a heat exchanger already. So you'll see, for example, a gasket that used, I've already created that as a item. I've also created, let's say, baffles that go into making a heat exchanger. So these items I already set up in preparation for this demo. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to build a cost, I want to build my portfolio for heat exchangers. Now, as you can see from a Beroe standpoint, you don't have anything pre-built. We don't have a direct price index for heat exchangers. We don't have a cost breakdown that already exists. And that will be the case in a lot of companies and a lot of categories. You may be buying something that we don't cover, or that's, let's say, very niche or specific to your business. So in that case, what you can do is you can create a custom cost item in here. So let's say I'm going to make heat exchangers, let's say for North America. And again, I have to assign it to certain, taxonomy within my business. So let's say components and parts. And let's say this is for my aerospace and defense business. And let's say this is heat exchanger type 1 that I'm creating. So once I've done that, this is where I would say most of the magic happens. Once I've said, okay, I don't know, 2 million spend I have. So here, what you do is, as you can see, the screen is very different. We don't have anything pre-populated. It's not an existing cost structure you can configure. So here, what you need to do is you can build your own cost structure now. And you have two choices. You can use from a set of market indices that Beroe has added, and we have 12,000 of these. When I say indices, these are, let's say, commodity prices. These are PPI, CPI indicators. These are foreign exchange rates, labor cost index, etc. And I'll show you a list of that in a minute. But let's say I was showing you that I already know that in a heat exchanger, there's gaskets that go in. So I would select my cost structures, the ones I already built. And let's say I am looking for the gasket I had created. Here, I would say, let's say that has 20% weightage. Another item I created was baffles. I'm not very up to speed on heat exchangers, but I think these are some plates that help you with heat flow and movements in an heat exchanger. And let's say this is 30%. And then I would add a third one and we'll move on from there. Let's say my cost structures, there's a shell that I have that goes into it. And then what the other piece is the market index. So I have built 3 components that go into this mega item, the heat exchanger, but I also know that there is a market index that is driving the cost. So as you can see, here is a whole set of market indices you can choose from. So in this case, let me say, I think there's a macroeconomic indicator that I should use. So let's say I am using PPI index for United States. And I'm saying that's 5% of the cost contribution. And then let's say I also want to add a commodity. Let's just add PET again. So PET, for example, resin also goes into the heat exchanger. I know that's part of the cost contribution, and I'll add that in. So now, as you can see, I've created my own cost breakdown. It's not that complex. In this cost breakdown, I can choose from an existing market index. The market index could be a macro indicator, it could be a commodity, it could be labor price, it could be anything that you have a price series for in the Beroe system. One other thing I would add, actually I missed, is you can also say that, let's say if there was something that you think is a fixed component, let's say it's the margins of the suppliers. So for that, we have something called residual component that you can also add. So I'm just going to add that in. And as you can see, I went over 100%. So I need to now edit my weightages. So doing this, now I have created my cost structure, which is custom to me. I had this information. If, for example, you need some assistance, of course, we have our SMEs at Beroe who can help you with this stage as well. So as you see, I created a custom cost structure. So it's taking a few seconds to pull this together, and hopefully it'll come through in a minute. So now you've created a custom cost structure. In this case, you see that from the beginning of the time that we have on our data series, we've indexed the price of this heat exchanger. So we are not saying the price of the heat exchanger, the unit price in absolute terms. We are showing you how the index is moving. So you can see that, okay, from a, if it was 100 baseline in January of 23, how does that move on? And of course, very important, it's not only till April 2025, it's giving you that forward-looking view as well. And as, of course, you can change your time periods. You can also see the cost driver view. So you'll recognize that you can see now here, the gasket we added, the baffles we added, how they are contributing to cost, because maybe one of those items causing a sudden spike or it is causing a sudden dip. And therefore you can go and do something there specifically. So this is what I think, the main features or the topics that I wanted to cover in the demo are. Of course, there's a lot more, feature set here, but hopefully this is clear in terms of the use case we are trying to solve, and so on and so forth. There are various other, features to make this easy to do and simple. Ultimately, in the Siemens example, as we saw, it is really about adopting the system within your business. We do allow for a certain level of configurations in here as well. So yeah, Neil, I think I'm done. Hopefully I've kept to time, but
I think you've covered an extraordinary amount in a very short period of time. So thank you very much for that. I am going to push into some questions now, if that's okay by everyone, as we've just gone through the demonstration. There's a few key questions I did want to cover off. Do we want to just quickly run through the Inflation Watch side of things, and then we'll jump on to a couple of very quick questions on the end?
Yeah, so I think just to close off, of course, as you can see, this is not a product that's been in existence for many years now. And there is, of course, a lot we are working on, given inputs from Siemens Energy on their version and what we're doing with them, but also from our experience with other customers and other people we're working with. So there are a few specific things I want to call out. So as you saw that today, a lot of the data is coming from Beroe, or you are adding your own cost breakdowns. But I do expect that in many cases, as a procurement practitioner, as a sourcing manager, you may want to adjust what the market movement estimate is, the system is showing you, because your supplier contract may be slightly different, or your situation might be slightly different. So we are going to have that feature which allows you to add your own forecast as well as adjust the estimates that the system's providing. On our platform, elsewhere in another module, we do explain the reasons as well. So what is driving changes in prices of benzene? Is it changes in supply demand? Is it changes in any other factors that are correlated? So we are going to bring that and integrate that level of analysis in this module as well. And of course, I think I can't complete a demo without saying there will be some more AI powered stuff that's coming. So the intent is that as we are looking at this portfolio, we will bring in AI to give you some recommendations of opportunities and risks, and at least suggestions saying we could try doing this. So let's say you're buying HDP from Europe, but the system's data is telling us that HDP in North America is less volatile or is expected to be less volatile. We could at least suggest that you could consider a switch, or at least switch a certain proportion of your spend to a different region, for example. And then lastly, for those who are Beroe customers, and if you're on the line, you will know about Abby. Abby is our bot. Everybody loves Abby. So Abby is currently not integrated with Inflation Watch, but of course the intent is that Abby will also be integrated with Inflation Watch, so you can have conversations with Abby about your data Abby can give you recommendations and proactive alerts on how things change across your portfolio. So those are some of the items we're working on with the team in the next few months, and very excited about where this is going.
Absolutely, very, very exciting stuff. If you forgive me, I am going to have to push on and go into some of the Q&A because we've had an extraordinary number of questions, some of which we are not going to be able to get to. Prerna, are we able to organise for any very specific questions, people from the team to get back to people individually afterwards? I'm sure that'll be okay. Superb.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just quickly skimming through the questions, and I think we will definitely need to follow up and go through this. But what I can do is just high level give you an understanding of what data is available. So data is available for both direct categories and indirect categories. I saw there were questions around logistics and, for example, services categories like consultancy and professional services. So we do cover those categories as well. Now, I'm also going to be very transparent and say it's not that Beroe has data on every single category that you're buying, but there is 12,000 plus indices we cover, which is, when I say 12,000, it's indices at different grade levels, at different different region levels as well, that we cover. So both on products and services. So that's one quick question in terms of how this data is produced. So forecasts, we would typically do 12 to 18 months out. These forecasts are done by our specialists. So we have commodity market specialists who are doing these forecasts, typically 12 to 18 months out. And we typically have 90% plus accuracy rates, in many cases 95, 98% as well. And again, more to come. We have 12,000 today. We are looking to go up to 30, 40,000 indices over the next few months as well. So the data is only going to grow, but again, it's linked to specific spend pools that we cover as a business.
And one very, very quick final question. The word tariffs keeps appearing in the questions. I can't think why today, not for the life of me. How does the system interact with that sort of question?
Yeah, so I think today when we are looking at our price forecasts, if tariffs are a big component of what's driving change at that level, then that would be already modeled into the price forecast we are doing. Specifically having tariffs as a field and as a metric for you to look at whether tariff, if you're buying it from Mexico or you're buying it from China, what's the change? That's not in Inflation Watch, but I'm happy to say we have a new module that we will be launching in the summer, where we are looking at helping with sourcing location selection based on not just tariffs, but also logistics costs and sustainability factors and risks and so on and so forth. So we would love to talk about that when it's ready.
Absolutely. I was not surprised at all that question came up. Well, we have overrun on time. My producers are going to be after me by the time we finish this. You've been so generous with your time, both of you, and thank you everyone for all the questions. As I said, any really specific questions, of which there are plenty in the chat, the team will get back to people separately afterwards. So bear with us and all of those questions will be addressed. So Adrian, Prerna, thank you so much. Speak soon, no doubt. The recording of this webinar and all the slides will be available shortly, so you can come back and watch again and share it with anyone you think may find it useful at the two. So thank you so much for your thoughts, your questions, your enthusiasm. Adrian, Prerna, thank you. Thanks to everyone for watching, and bye for now.